Global shock, Israeli missile reportedly hits North Korean embassy in Tehran. If true, this single strike could place three of the world's most volatile powers, Israel, Iran, and nuclear-armed North Korea, on the same geopolitical fault line. But what actually happened in Tehran? And why are global strategists quietly warning that this moment could reshape the balance of power? For years, analysts had warned that the modern geopolitical landscape had become increasingly fragile. Conflicts in one region could quickly ripple across continents, pulling multiple nations into tension within hours. But few expected that one reported strike in the heart of Tehran could suddenly place Israel, Iran, and North Korea on the same geopolitical map. The first reports began emerging quietly. Local sources in Iran suggested that a missile strike had hit a diplomatic compound in Tehran. At first, the information was unclear. In situations like this, early reports are often confusing and details take time to verify. However, what immediately captured global attention was the location of the strike. According to initial reports circulating among international observers and media outlets, the damaged compound was believed to be linked to North Korea's diplomatic presence in Iran. That detail alone changed the nature of the incident completely. A strike involving Israel and Iran was already sensitive, but the possible involvement of property connected to North Korea, a nuclear-armed state, introduced an entirely new level of geopolitical concern. Within hours, analysts, diplomats, and intelligence agencies around the world began paying close attention. Tehran, the capital of Iran, is not just any city. It is the political center of the Iranian government and one of the most heavily monitored capitals in the world. Embassies, diplomatic missions, and foreign compounds from dozens of countries operate there. Every move in the city is closely watched by both Iranian authorities and foreign intelligence services. When a missile strike occurs in such an environment, the implications extend far beyond the immediate damage. Diplomatic compounds hold a special status under international law. According to the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations, embassies and diplomatic missions are treated as sovereign territory of the country they represent. This means that an embassy is legally considered part of the nation whose flag flies above it. Because of this rule, any attack on a diplomatic facility, even if accidental, can trigger serious international consequences. If the compound struck in Tehran was indeed connected to North Korea, the situation becomes far more complicated. North Korea is not just another country with an embassy abroad. It is a nuclear-armed state with a long history of tense relations with many parts of the international community. Any perceived violation of its diplomatic property could be interpreted as a serious breach of sovereignty. At this early stage, however, many questions remained unanswered. Was the compound deliberately targeted? Was it caught in the middle of another military operation? Or could it have been an unintended consequence of a broader strike in the area? Military operations, especially those involving long-range missiles, are complex and highly technical. Even with modern precision technology, the possibility of unexpected outcomes can never be completely eliminated. Still, the combination of Israel, Iran, and North Korea appearing in the same incident immediately raised alarm among global observers. Each of these countries carries significant weight in international politics. Israel is widely known for maintaining one of the most advanced military and intelligence capabilities in the world. The country has conducted numerous operations over the years aimed at protecting its national security interests, particularly when it perceives emerging threats. Iran, meanwhile, remains one of the most influential powers in the Middle East. Its capital, Tehran, serves as the command center for political, military, and diplomatic activity across the region. North Korea, on the other hand, operates within a completely different strategic environment. Although geographically distant from the Middle East, its nuclear weapons program and its history of missile development have made it one of the most closely watched countries on Earth. The idea that these three nations could suddenly become connected through a single reported missile strike was enough to capture global attention almost instantly. Newsrooms across Europe, Asia, and North America began monitoring the situation closely. Analysts started discussing possible scenarios. Governments quietly began assessing the situation through diplomatic channels. Financial markets also tend to watch geopolitical crises carefully. Investors understand that sudden tensions between powerful states can influence global stability, trade routes, and economic confidence. But despite the rising concern, the most important detail remained uncertain: what exactly had happened on the ground in Tehran. Early information in international incidents often takes time to confirm. Governments carefully verify intelligence before making public statements. Military officials review targeting data. Diplomats consult with their counterparts behind closed doors. Until those processes unfold, analysts must rely on cautious interpretation rather than immediate conclusions. Still, even at this early stage, the situation carried a deeper message about the modern geopolitical landscape. Today's world is deeply interconnected. A single military action in one city can trigger reactions in multiple regions almost instantly. Diplomatic relationships, security alliances, and economic systems are all closely linked. That is why even a reported incident involving a diplomatic compound can quickly become a matter of global concern. And as more details slowly begin to emerge, one larger question begins to form in the minds of observers around the world. How did Israel, Iran, and North Korea suddenly become connected in the same geopolitical moment? To understand that question, it is necessary to look beyond the strike itself and examine the deeper strategic relationships that tie these countries together. Long before the reports from Tehran began circulating, a quiet and complex geopolitical triangle had already been forming between Israel, Iran, and North Korea. These three countries are separated by thousands of kilometers, different cultures, and completely different political systems. Yet in the world of global strategy, distance does not always mean separation. To understand why the reported strike created such intense global attention, analysts often begin by examining the long and complicated relationship between Israel and Iran. For decades, the two countries have existed in what many experts describe as a shadow conflict. Unlike traditional wars fought openly between armies, this conflict has largely taken place through intelligence operations, cyber activity, proxy groups, and strategic messaging. Israel views Iran as one of the most serious security challenges it faces. Iranian leaders, on the other hand, have frequently criticized Israel's policies and influence in the region. Over time, this rivalry has created an environment where both sides closely watch each other's actions. But this rivalry does not exist in isolation. Beyond the Middle East, another country often appears in strategic discussions involving Iran, North Korea. North Korea operates in a very different geopolitical environment. Located in East Asia, it has spent decades developing advanced missile technology and nuclear capabilities. Because of this, it remains one of the most heavily sanctioned countries in the world. Despite this isolation, North Korea maintains diplomatic relationships with several countries across different regions, including Iran. Over the years, analysts and international observers have often discussed possible cooperation between the two countries in areas related to missile development and military technology. Some reports and studies have suggested that the two nations may share certain technical knowledge, although many of these claims remain difficult to confirm publicly. What is clear, however, is that both Iran and North Korea have faced similar pressures from international sanctions and political isolation. This shared experience has created what many experts describe as a strategic understanding between them. In global politics, countries that face similar challenges often develop quiet partnerships. These relationships are not always visible in official statements, but they can shape long-term geopolitical strategies. Israel has been watching these developments closely for many years. Israeli defense planners have historically focused on preventing hostile actors from gaining military capabilities that could threaten Israel's security. This policy has guided many of Israel's strategic decisions over the decades. When Israeli analysts look at global security issues, they rarely focus only on one country. Instead, they examine networks of relationships, alliances, and technological exchanges that could influence regional stability. In this context, the connection between Iran and North Korea becomes particularly important. Iran sits in the center of the Middle East, a region already filled with complex alliances and rivalries. North Korea, meanwhile, represents one of the most advanced missile development programs outside of the traditional military powers. When these two countries appear in the same strategic discussion, analysts often begin considering the broader implications. Now imagine a situation where Israeli military operations, Iranian territory, and North Korean diplomatic presence suddenly intersect in one event. That is precisely why the reports from Tehran generated such strong reactions among geopolitical observers. Even if the reported strike was unintentional, the symbolic impact is enormous. It creates the image of three highly sensitive geopolitical actors suddenly connected through a single incident. This is why governments and intelligence agencies approach such situations very carefully. They understand that misinterpretations can escalate tensions quickly. If North Korea were to interpret the incident as a direct attack on its diplomatic property, the situation could become extremely complicated. Even if the strike was not intended to target North Korean assets, perception often matters as much as reality in international politics. Diplomacy, therefore, becomes essential in moments like these. Behind closed doors, diplomats often work quickly to clarify misunderstandings before they grow into larger crises. Quiet communications between governments can prevent situations from escalating into open confrontations. However, the complexity of this particular situation makes that process more challenging. Israel, Iran, and North Korea do not maintain normal diplomatic relations with one another. In fact, communication between them is extremely limited. This means that information often travels indirectly through third parties, international organizations, or intelligence channels. Such indirect communication can slow down the process of crisis management. At the same time, the modern information environment adds another layer of difficulty. News spreads globally within minutes. Social media platforms amplify reports, speculation, and commentary almost instantly. Governments often find themselves responding to global narratives while still trying to verify what actually happened. In the case of the reported strike in Tehran, The geopolitical triangle between Israel, Iran, and North Korea suddenly moved from theoretical analysis into a real-world situation. And that is precisely what makes the situation so important to understand. Because when three strategically sensitive nations become connected through one event, even a small misunderstanding can carry global consequences. But this raises an even more important question. How could a missile strike occur in one of the most politically sensitive capitals in the world, and potentially affect a diplomatic compound linked to a nuclear-armed country? To answer that question, it becomes necessary to examine how modern military operations actually work, and why even the most advanced technology cannot always prevent unexpected outcomes. Modern warfare is often described as precise, calculated, and technologically advanced. Military briefings frequently highlight the accuracy of modern missile systems, guided weapons, and satellite intelligence. On paper, these technologies promise the ability to strike specific targets with remarkable precision. But in reality, warfare is rarely perfect. Even the most advanced military systems operate in environments filled with uncertainty. Cities are crowded with buildings, infrastructure, and civilian spaces. Targets may be located close to diplomatic compounds, residential neighborhoods, or government offices. In such conditions, even carefully planned operations carry risks. Tehran is one of the most complex urban environments in the Middle East. The city is home to nearly 9 million people and functions as the political and administrative center of Iran. Within its boundaries sit government buildings, military facilities, intelligence headquarters, universities, hospitals, and dozens of diplomatic missions representing countries from around the world. In a city like this, military operations, whether covert or overt, must navigate an extremely dense landscape. This is where the concept of precision warfare becomes important. Modern missiles often rely on a combination of satellite navigation, internal guidance systems, and pre-programmed coordinates. These systems are designed to guide the missile to a specific location with high accuracy. However, accuracy depends heavily on the information that is provided before the launch. If the coordinates are slightly incorrect, if the intelligence data is outdated, or if the target environment changes unexpectedly, the results can differ from the original plan. Military planners refer to this as targeting uncertainty. It does not necessarily mean that the technology failed. Instead, it means the situation on the ground evolved in ways that intelligence could not fully predict. In dense urban areas, this challenge becomes even greater. Buildings can be extremely close together. Diplomatic compounds may exist within the same districts as government offices or other strategic facilities. A strike aimed at one structure could occur only meters away from another sensitive location. Because of this, modern militaries spend enormous amounts of time gathering intelligence before conducting operations. Surveillance satellites monitor locations from space. Drones collect aerial imagery. Intelligence agencies analyze patterns of movement and activity. The goal is to reduce uncertainty as much as possible before any action is taken. But intelligence is rarely perfect. Information can become outdated within hours. Vehicles move, people relocate, buildings change their function. A location believed to house one activity may later be used for something entirely different. In such circumstances, military decisions become extremely complicated. The reported strike in Tehran, if confirmed, raises questions that analysts often explore in situations like this. Was the intended target located near the diplomatic compound? Could the strike have been aimed at another facility in the same area? Or could the compound itself have been unintentionally caught within the radius of the attack? These are the kinds of questions that military investigators and intelligence analysts attempt to answer after such incidents. Another factor that complicates modern operations is the speed at which they unfold. From the moment a missile is launched, events move extremely quickly. Guidance systems adjust trajectory in seconds. Communication between operators and command centers occurs in real time. Once the missile reaches its final stage, there is often no way to reverse the process. Diplomatic consequences, however, unfold much more slowly. After a strike occurs, governments must gather evidence, analyze data, consult allies, and determine their official response. This process can take days or even weeks. During that time, speculation often fills the information gap. Media outlets report early details. Experts provide analysis. Social media spreads interpretations and theories across the globe. The narrative surrounding an incident can sometimes evolve faster than the facts themselves. That is why governments tend to approach such situations cautiously. If the compound struck in Tehran was indeed connected to North Korea, investigators would carefully review all available evidence. They would analyze satellite imagery, communication records, missile trajectories, and intelligence reports. Their goal would be to determine three key things. First, what was the intended target? Second, how did the missile reach the location that was struck? And third, was the outcome consistent with the original operational plan? These answers matter greatly for diplomacy. If an incident is determined to be accidental, governments often seek to manage the situation through communication and negotiation. If it appears deliberate, the diplomatic consequences can become much more serious. History provides several examples where unintended military incidents created global crises. During the Cold War, both the United States and the Soviet Union experienced moments where misinterpretations or technical errors nearly triggered major confrontations. In many cases, careful investigation and communication helped prevent escalation. The same principle applies today. Modern geopolitics is not only shaped by power and strategy, but also by the ability of governments to manage unexpected events calmly. But even when leaders attempt to de-escalate tensions, perception plays a powerful role. If a nation believes its sovereignty has been violated, public pressure can push leaders towards stronger responses. Domestic politics, national pride, and international reputation all influence how governments react to sensitive incidents. This is especially true when the country involved possesses nuclear capabilities, which brings the situation back to the central concern surrounding the reports from Tehran. If North Korea interprets the event as a violation of its diplomatic territory, the diplomatic consequences could extend far beyond the Middle East. And that leads to the most critical question facing policymakers around the world. What happens next if this situation begins to escalate? Tehran is normally known as the political heart of Iran. It is a city where decisions are made, alliances are discussed, and regional strategy is shaped. But after the reports of a missile strike connected to a diplomatic compound, analysts around the world began looking at the map differently. Because now, one small location in Tehran appeared to sit at the intersection of three powerful geopolitical forces: Israel, Iran, and North Korea. In global affairs, geography often determines strategy. Countries build alliances, plan defenses, and conduct diplomacy based on where they are located and who surrounds them. But sometimes, geography becomes symbolic. When a diplomatic compound linked to a nuclear-armed country becomes involved in a military incident, the location suddenly represents much more than just buildings and streets. It becomes a symbol of sovereignty. Under international law, diplomatic missions are protected spaces. The Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations treats embassy grounds as the territory of the country they represent. This rule exists to ensure that diplomats can operate safely, even inside countries where political tensions exist. Without that protection, diplomacy itself would become impossible. That is why any damage to a diplomatic compound, even if accidental, immediately raises serious concerns in the international system. The moment reports suggested that a North Korean diplomatic facility might have been affected, analysts began asking a different type of question. Not just what happened, but how could something like this happen in such a sensitive environment? Modern military operations rely heavily on precision. Guided missiles today use satellite navigation, advanced sensors, and digital mapping systems. These technologies allow militaries to strike targets with far greater accuracy than at any point in history. But precision does not eliminate complexity. Cities like Tehran are dense, layered environments. Diplomatic buildings may exist only a few streets away from government offices, intelligence centers, or military infrastructure. From a satellite image, a location may appear isolated and clear. On the ground, however, the reality can be far more complicated. Vehicles move, facilities change their purpose, new security zones appear without public notice. Military planners spend enormous time studying these environments before conducting any operation. Intelligence teams analyze images, communications, and activity patterns. Every effort is made to reduce uncertainty. Yet uncertainty never fully disappears. History provides many examples where carefully planned operations produced unexpected outcomes. A building may be misidentified, coordinates may be slightly inaccurate, a target may relocate shortly before a strike. Even environmental factors can affect operations. Weather conditions, electronic interference, or unexpected obstacles can alter how a weapon behaves during its final approach. These possibilities are rare, but they exist. And when they occur near diplomatic property, the consequences extend far beyond the physical damage. This is because military timelines and diplomatic timelines operate very differently. A missile strike unfolds in seconds. Diplomatic reactions unfold over days. In the hours following such an incident, governments begin a careful process of investigation. Military officials review targeting data. Intelligence agencies analyze surveillance imagery. Diplomats begin quiet communications through international channels. Their goal is simple but urgent: determine exactly what happened before political reactions escalate. In many situations, governments avoid making immediate accusations until the facts become clearer. Public statements are often cautious, using words like reports, allegations, or unconfirmed information. Behind the scenes, however, discussions move quickly. If a diplomatic compound belonging to a nuclear-armed country has been affected, leaders must consider not only the facts of the event, but also how it will be perceived internationally. Perception matters deeply in geopolitics. A country does not need to believe an attack was intentional for tensions to rise. If the incident is interpreted as a violation of sovereignty, domestic pressure can push leaders toward stronger responses. This dynamic becomes even more sensitive when the country involved possesses nuclear weapons. North Korea has spent decades building a reputation for responding strongly to perceived threats. Its leadership often views sovereignty and national security through a highly defensive lens. Even a misunderstanding can therefore become politically significant. At the same time, other global powers are watching carefully. Major countries understand that sudden escalation between multiple states can destabilize entire regions. Financial markets, trade networks, and diplomatic alliances all depend on stability. That is why incidents like the one reported in Tehran quickly attract attention from governments across Europe, Asia, and North America. For them, the key question is no longer just about a missile strike. It becomes a question about containment. Can the situation be clarified quickly? Can diplomatic communication prevent misunderstanding? Or could this moment slowly grow into a larger geopolitical crisis? Because history shows that major conflicts rarely begin with deliberate decisions for war. More often, they begin with confusion, misinterpretation, and unexpected events. And as analysts continue examining the details emerging from Tehran, one concern quietly grows among global observers. If three of the world's most strategically sensitive nations have suddenly been connected by a single incident, what might happen if the situation moves beyond investigation and into confrontation?